Jake Paul vs. Anderson Silva, the exorbitant price of the PPV. On October 29, the youngest of the Paul brothers will play his sixth professional encounter. For the occasion, he will face Anderson Silva, former UFC champion. The Brazilian has already fought 4 duels in professional boxing and more than 46 confrontations he has delivered in mixed martial arts. This will be the first and only meeting of the year for the two athletes. Therefore, the shock is particularly awaited by many fans of the noble art. Pay-per-view at a high price. At the latest news, French fans will not be able to enjoy the card on television. Americans will have to pay almost $60 to see the pay-per-view. A sum equivalent to the amount they would have had to pay to see Jake Paul face Hazem Rahman Jr. before the duel was called off. The latter had already been requested as a replacement for Tommy Fury. But the two men in turn found another adversary. One will face Vitor Belfort, while the other will meet Paul Bomba next month. A completed card. In addition to the confrontation between the YouTuber and the MMA star, other confrontations are also on the program. Just before the main event, Uriah Hall and Le'Veon Bell will make their in-ring debut. The Jamaican happens to be a former opponent of Anderson Silva, and boasts a 17-11 record in MMA. The man he will be up against is none other than an NFL veteran. For many, the footballer will not be able to keep pace with the former UFC fighter. But this meeting is part of the line of surprising confrontations, which involve athletes from various backgrounds in the world of the noble art. Jake Paul wins against legend Anderson Silva. Boxing, big return to the ring, this time against a client. Finally, Jake Paul wins against the legend Anderson Silva. For his return to the ring, Jake Paul was pitted against an MMA legend. Indeed, after Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren, he faced Anderson Silva. On paper, neither more nor less than his biggest challenge in the ring. 8 rounds were scheduled for this meeting. Finally, Jake Paul wins against Anderson Silva. Schedule of the meeting. Experienced, Anderson Silva is calm, patient while Jake is aggressive and puts pressure. On the first round, the Brazilian sends only 1 shot on a counter. From the second round, Silva appears much more active and increases the intensity of the meeting by a notch. He also asks Jake to fight and not to clinch him. As usual, Silva is provocative to the delight of the public. In the third round, the exchanges harden, the two men send heavy strikes and both find success. With only 3 rounds left, the match is tight. Certainly, this is the most difficult fight of Paul's young career. The latter, while Silva regularly finds the target on uppercuts. In the very last round, Anderson Silva finally takes a knockdown. But the legend gets up and the meeting will go well after the 8 scheduled rounds. The sequel for Jake Paul. Thus, with this new victory, Jake Paul has overcome his childhood idol. Obviously, the YouTuber will not escape criticism. Silva is 47 years old and he is not a real boxer. But the results plead in its favor and are undeniable. From now on, there is no doubt that Jake Paul will be turned to an even more vigorous challenge in the ring. So far, he has 6 wins and no losses.